I did talk with one of the other council members about an hour before this meeting, and he did not tell me he was or was not going to be here, so I wasn't quite sure. So he may come in at some point, and he may not. But I think we can't vote. Of course, we don't have a quorum, but I think as important as a couple of the items are, I think we're going to go ahead and talk about them so that we'll all kind of have our heads wrapped around it since we've got the information out there. But I am going to say, we won't actually do the agenda because we don't have the quorum, but I think after this week, I think we need to pray more than ever. So I think we'll still pray and do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, if y'all don't mind. I hope nobody minds that we do that because I feel like we should be doing that right now. So, Robbie, you'll lead us in the prayer.
Dear Lord, we're thankful for this afternoon. We pray, Lord, that you can do this, that you help us make the right decisions. We pray for our country. We pray for our city. We pray for our council. We pray for the land. We pray for our children. We pray for each one to give us the right decision.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I guess if Harold comes in, then we'll do a meeting and we can do our voting or tabling or whatever. But the park has been a interesting topic lately. Mike has some information to help us kind of move forward on what to do and what our options are. So I'm going to let him kind of take the floor and tell us kind of what he's learned and what he's figured out and some of the different folks he's talked to, and maybe we can wrap our heads around it, and in the next meeting have a vote so that we can get our park back in place.
Okay, so real quick, I gave everybody a handout. And I think you have a total of 4 or 5 handouts, and it's going to give you great reading material to look at over the next week. I think most of you know my number one concern is the safety of the children, and if you don't know that, you should know that. If you look at my bio, I've coached kids for 33 years, including high school and college. So it's always been my number one concern is the safety of the child. My theory is anytime you go into a game, if you know a child's going to be injured, you don't play that game. So what I'm going to do tonight, because we're going to be making this whole presentation next week, I guess, what, Thursday night?
Thursday night, yes.
Thursday night, I'm just going to give you just a little bit of an overview of what we're talking about. And I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk around and I'm going to give you some things to think about. So, right here in this basket is what used to be called mulch. And mulch, if you put the definition and start doing the research, you understand that mulch has to be put back there every 6 months, at least once a year. It has to be refreshed. If not, mulch over a period of a couple years is not mulch. What's it called, Bobby?
Compost.
Compost. So that's what it is. So during the COVID-19 incident, when all of that started, the state closed the park, and I started looking at the park. With my background, I started noticing some things and feeling very uncomfortable. Some of the things that I noticed was, and if you can ride by the park, you can look at it, it's got a bumper on the side of it, it's 12 feet tall. 12 inches tall. And that bumper basically tells you how high your mulch should be based on the slide that we have. So let's talk about it for a second. If you're going to get on a fence or you're going to climb a wall, the higher you go, the more risk you get, correct? Same thing with the swing. some of the things that you'll see next week that I'll go ahead and tell you, but the average slide in the United States for a municipality or a school system is 6 to 8 feet tall. How tall do you think our slide is?
13.
A little bit over 12. But it's depending on what you're measuring from. I'm going to give you a handout. So what you're really looking at is, according to the specs of the company that put it in, you're looking at a 12-foot slide. That's where the child puts their feet on. But their head is 16 feet off of the ground. Under all of the requirements, and I'm going to give you a list of them, and you can go and read all the different books, we should have 12 inches of mulch underneath that slide. How much mulch do you think we had underneath that slide when our department dug the hole to see how much mulch? 3 inches.
Oh.
So you can Google everything I'm telling you, and what you're going to find out is for a 12-inch slide, you're required by every organization in the country that, hold on, let me find this other file. And you can go and look at this over the next week and do your research. But every organization, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, they all talk about slides. They talk about the height of the slides. They talk about the wrist of the slides. They talk about what you're supposed to have underneath that slide. We had 3 inches, you're supposed to have 12 inches. It also talks about you're supposed to have maintenance every 6 months on a regular basis. We haven't had any additional mulch added in 3.5 years. They also, as you read through all of these different articles, you'll also see that it's required an annual inspection. We've not had an inspection in 3.5 years since it was put in. So, you know, some people say I did not have the power to close the park. But as far as I'm concerned, if you read the first thing that I gave you there, and it talks about the power, the job of the councilman, and then if you look here at a copy of our charter, it specifically tells you why I would act the way I acted when I determined exactly what was going on with the park. I personally did not want the liability. I did not want the city to have the liability. And I felt like that it was my responsibility to close the park until we could figure out a process. Without getting into a lot of detail, there are probably 15 different options for slides. I'm going to give everybody a piece of grass. I'm going to ask you not to take it home this week. Next week I'll let you take it home with you. But this is synthetic grass. And if you'll notice on the back of this, it has holes. I'm going to give you a piece of pad, piece of pad, piece of pad, piece of padding, piece of padding, and I'm forgetting you in the back, aren't I? So, when you're looking at mulch and you're looking at a playground, what are some of the problems you have with mulch? First of all, it disintegrates. So if it disintegrates and it's not refreshed, then all of a sudden you got a risk to the children. Second of all, if you don't have it inspected annually, you've got a situation. You ever seen a child go down a slide and have a razor blade at the bottom of the slide? So when you start reading these articles and start doing the research, you'll read that. You'll also read that we got a problem in America right now with needles in mulch. We also have a problem of guns being hid in mulch. So one of the things you've got to look at is, what does mulch give you and what does it create for you? It gives you a cheap way to build a park and to cover it. But you've got additional problems as you go down. You've got to refresh it at least twice a year. You've got to have it inspected. You've got to always have at least 12 inches of mulch at all times. As I said earlier, no mulch in 3.5 years, no inspection during that 3.5 years. Let's talk about some of the different playgrounds. I gave you, I think, a picture that I knocked of the slide. So the first, let me just pause this a second. So I need to give you one, I'll do this in a second. So the first is currently our slide. And if you'll look up there, you've got what I pointed to, a height. This right here, playground is at Blue Ridge Elementary. And this playground right here is at the Ridge Church. And then this playground is in McCaysville. So if you look at these, you'll see a lot of difference. And a lot of the difference is the safety, but all of these, there we go. All of the carpet or the bottom underneath these are all based on what? What do you think they're based on? The height. So when you do your research and you Google the state of Georgia and you Google the Southeast and you Google the United States and you look at the average slide and you see 6 to 8 feet, and then you notice our slide is 12 feet and it's got another 4 feet above it, so when the child stands there and they fall and we only have 3 inches of mulch, we have the liability. I gave you a copy of an article about 4 weeks ago where Cesar Martinez made a comment at the meeting, and it's printed in the paper, about you probably should go ahead and close the park. So at our last meeting, I was trying to make a presentation on the park and my recommendations, but I didn't have all of the facts in. I wanted to get some additional pricing and additional options. So I wanted to look at the pricing structure of all the different options. Grass, rubber mulch. Do you know you can buy rubber mulch? Have it blowed in. What's the problem with rubber mulch? It's got to be refreshed. It's got to be raked to the middle on a regular basis. Depending on where you get the mulch, some mulch, rubber they're saying, has chemical problems, has the color problems. But that's an option. The playground in McCaysville, that playground right there is a very small playground. Of course, you can look at the slides, but no slide, nothing near what we have. Same thing at Blue Ridge Elementary, same thing at Morganton, same place, any place in this county, and you can go to Gilmer County, you can go to Meach Park, and you can go look at all of them and the size of their slides. But this surface right here has a 20-year warranty, but it has freezing problems and cracks. What do we have here in the winter? Ice and cold weather. The grass surface right there that I gave you, it's one of 3 levels. If you'll go over to the ridge, and I challenge everybody to drive over to the ridge over the next 4 or 5 days, walk out on their turf field. It's a level 1. So if you'll notice, there's no playground on that grass. 0. So it doesn't have to have as much padding in the level. If you go up to Blue Ridge Elementary, it's level 1. Same thing, look at the size. Size of all of their equipment is 4 to 5 feet. So level 1 takes care of that. What I'm proposing for the city of Blue Ridge is this, which is a level 3, and then what they do with that rubber, they have 3 layers around the height areas, 2 layers around the smaller height areas, and then that layer throughout the park. We have a 15-year warranty, and when I do this next week with all the numbers, you'll see that the cost is half over that 15-year period. But the main thing is the safety and the sanitary. What do we know about mulch and the sanitation of mulch? Well, it molds, it rots, it deteriorates, you don't have the size, the thickness that you need. So that's some of the problems that you have. So that's the reason I closed the park. And my objective is to reopen that park with one of these other surfaces whenever the council decides to have a meeting. There was one called earlier this week, and then it was canceled by a couple council members. And then this meeting was called tonight, and they decided to cancel that meeting as well. So hopefully they will be here next week, and we can go in more detail. But I challenge you to go to Blue Ridge Elementary. I challenge you to go out to the Ridge and walk on their, and look at their parks, look at the height. Go to Meeks Park, go to LJ, wherever you're at, and you'll start seeing the difference. But go down to our park. Of course, the mulch has been taken out, but we can show you pictures. But what happened when you start calling these companies to get some pricing, they go to Google Maps. And what do you think the first thing they tell you when they get you on the phone? You're not in compliance. Do you not realize the padding on the side is 12 inches for a reason? You have to continue to keep 12 inches of mulch the whole time. The group that did the park originally, great job. 12 inches of mulch when they left and drove out of Blue Ridge. But since then, nothing. So I gave you a copy of the charter, which in my opinion gives me the ability to close that playground. You can Google a councilman. I gave you a copy of that. Based on my opinion, it does the same thing. Like I told the other council members, I sent them all an email after the last meeting. Told them I hadn't slept since 2 o'clock that night, worrying about the effect of some kid getting hurt. It had already been published in the paper 2 weeks early, and I thought we were set up for a liability issue. I got a response from one council member said, I totally agree. I got a response from the mayor, you're over the park. I did not get any response from 2 councilmen, and then one council member said, just delay it to the next meeting. I didn't feel like I could delay. So if I get fired or get censored or whatever, that's fine with me. But I know I did the right thing. I don't want to get into any more details and the numbers tonight. We'll do that next week, the regular meeting, but I'll be more than glad to answer any question that you may have. Yeah?
What about changing the slide?
We could. That's one of the things that our attorney said when I talked to him on the phone. He said we might need to remove that slide or reduce the size of the slide. We could do that. That's an option, but we got to have the other council members got to be present to make that decision.
Is there a drainage issue at the current playground?
That's another thing I didn't get into tonight. We had no drains in the park. And if you'll look at the bottom, if you'll go down and look right now, we do have a drain here. It's about a 16 to 18 inch fall. Am I correct, Ms. Hart? Roughly?
I don't.
Yeah, but it is. But it has a 16 to 18 foot fall, but no drains. And that's an issue. Under all of these other programs that you're looking at, drains are required. And just to give you an example of this turf, the way they do it, they come in, clean everything out, they make it level, so it's not got a 16 to 18 inch slope. They put pea gravel in. I forget, I think we have to have 100 and something tons of pea gravel. We bring that in. They come in with a road packer and they pack it in. Then they put sand down and then they come in and put drains in, and then they come in behind that and put another layer of rock. And then they come in and pack it again. Then they put the padding down based on all of the swing sets and everything based on what is needed for the heights of these equipment. And then they take the grass and the pad and they glue it in. Got a 15-year warranty. You can take a pressure washer, you can take a water hose, you can rinse it off. The sanitation is probably 300% better than mulch. Mulch is not bad, but with the height scenario, mulch may not be our best answer.
You know, and I would think too, Mike, with the thickness of the mulch, with a small child, like, 3 and under, it's gonna be to the bottom of their little bottoms, their legs aren't this long, and if you got 12 inches of mulch, I keep offering them that. Or I was explaining to somebody today, we have a lot of special needs kids that use that part, and their mobility is a little bit difficult for them, so the mulch makes it a little hard for them to move in there.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Do you think it's easier to take a wheelchair in on mulch or a wheelchair in on grass? All day long.
Well, and the one thing the insurance guy that we talked with said, we have that really nice ADA piece that is the swing, but for a wheelchair to be able to get to that swing, it makes it a little difficult because the mulch is kind of running out there.
But like I said, I can talk all night on this, but I'll go through it again on Thursday night at our meeting next week in more detail. I'll show you the numbers. I'll give you a breakdown of all the different types of grass, rubber mulch. And if you go up to the ridge and you look at their small playground, you will see it's a hard, you walk out on it, it's soft, but it's kind of hard at the same time. But what they do is they pour a concrete slab, and it's basically like they're pouring in some type of a heavy glue on top. And it's very soft, it's very nice, but the problem is cost is like 3 times the cost of what it would be to put the grass or to do rubber mulch or to redo this mulch and continually refresh it on a regular basis. And one of the problems that I have with where we're at right now with the mulch is, stop and think, we put the mulch in, we have to refresh it at least every 6 months. So 4 months into that 6-month period, we walk by to look to see if we have enough mulch. So we're always kind of sitting on the liability side. And then you have to add the mulch, and then you do mulch again at the end of the year, and then you have to have it inspected. And then on top of that, every 5 years you have to go in and take all the mulch out, because it's this. And it's 12 inches of mulch is required, not 12 inches of dirt. Also, we have a problem with puddles, because we get a lot of rain, and if you'll go out there sometimes, you'll see puddles. Problem is, if we only have 3 to 4 inches of mulch, and it's hard from the heat, and you have puddles, then it's just like concrete. Now, COVID-19 hit, and I started getting a lot of pressure on Facebook. Of course, I'm not on Facebook. With a securities license, you're not allowed to be on Facebook because of compliance. I'm a compliance nut. I believe you got to be in compliance if you're doing things. You got to do it correctly. But what we found out when I started looking at all the different things was we were not in compliance on a lot of different areas. So I was able to kind of delay opening the playground. I got a lot of bad press. I got a lot of people calling me, sending me emails, you need to do this, you need to do that. Well, my theory was, as long as I could keep it open, keep it closed until I could get the experts into Fannin County to look at it. And I did. They came out of LaGrange, they came out of Cummings, Georgia, they came out of Dalton, Georgia, and then I've had, I think, 3 other companies go to the Google Maps and look at it. All of them told me the same thing. You're out of compliance. This is what you got to do. you need to close this thing, because someone's gonna sue you. And that's what I did. So if I'm not allowed by the charter, which I believe I am, and I'm not allowed by the law, which I believe I am, because I was put in direct supervision of the park. You can look at my background and my bio. I feel like I'm not an expert, but I got 35 years. I feel like I know what I'm talking about. And I made that decision. Any other questions?
Two.
Sure.
The first one is, do we have any assurance that these other two council members are going to be here next Thursday?
I have no clue.
We didn't know until after lunch, did we, that they weren't about lunchtime after? They weren't going to be there.
It's like 3,
All about
2:30.
one of them, I did talk to him before, and he didn't tell me whether he was coming or he wasn't,
But if you remember, one council member went on Facebook, most of y'all, you're on Facebook, I don't, like I said, my daughters call me. But went on Facebook and made a comment, you know, they were gonna look into it, and they were gonna take care, and they're gonna get this thing back open. I started to bring everybody a Band-Aid tonight. Everybody know what a Band-Aid is? That's what it would be like, reopening that park in the situation that it was in. And I'm not gonna be responsible for that. We're not gonna put a Band-Aid on it. Pressure of people on Facebook don't bother me. My number one concern is the kids. Other question I'm
The other
sorry.
one is, I am in a government group on Facebook, and we try to just stay up with agendas. I think the one thing is just having the information and being able to share that. And what I've heard here tonight, you know, I can share with our group, which is about close to 500 people, but I think just having the information out there and having it be factual instead of just sort of hearsay thing makes a huge difference. I mean, I don't have an issue with the park being closed knowing what's been shared.
And like I said, you go look at all the agencies
Right.
and read that, you're gonna see exactly what I'm talking about. And then all you gotta think about, if you're climbing up a wall, the higher you go, the more risk. And on a 12-inch slide, anywhere you read, it's gonna tell you 12 inches or more. 12 feet slide, 12 inches. And if you go to the top, and that's where a kid's standing there with their head at the top, if they fall, guess what? And some other things that I kind of found that I wasn't totally sure, but I called the experts and brought them in. And it was hard to get people, when COVID-19 first hit, to come to Blue Ridge Gorge, everybody, as we all know. But one of the things at the bottom of the big slide, if you remember from the park, we had these big black mats, and they're huge, and they're heavy, they're incredible, and I'm sure they're very expensive, I haven't looked at that. But we had none of them at the bottom of the slide. I would have thought if we had 3 inches of mulch, we would have at least that there, but we didn't. And, you know, I just think we had to make an immediate decision and close it. I challenge everybody here to go do your research. I challenge you to have all of your 500 people go do their research. And when we come back next Thursday night, hopefully we'll have the other council members here. And I'll do a full presentation. I'll do a breakdown of all the costs and all the price. But to me, making sure our playgrounds are safe for the kids is more important than striping the street or putting a sidewalk.
I'd like to say something, if you don't mind, since I was in charge of the park.
Yeah, you were.
The mats were put there, but now, first of all, I've got to say this, I've been off council for 3 years. So what has happened in this 3 years, it's not up to me. We actually, when I was on council, we discussed this layment, but it was so expensive. We had $120,000, maybe $135 or so to use. We ended up, they approved $120,000, I believe.
And it was not enough, was it?
No, we had to go back because we added the little one, but we had no choice because we didn't have the money to put this stuff. That would have been great, and I think this will be a great addition. If y'all got the money to do it, and even talking to other council members, the other council members when we've done this, that was always something that we could add later. And as far as though the compliance of it, it was in compliance, this other company, I mean, the company would have been negligent on their part.
Right, I said it was in
Yes,
compliance,
right,
and they
right.
left. It was-
But there's always maintenance, and I do agree, you know, you've got expensive maintenance, you know, $5,000-6,000. They told me every year it had to be topped off with 6 inches. I don't know about the 6 months, but we had the mats there, they're the ones that done everything that needed to be done. So, but whatever's happened between the time I went out and then, I don't know. I can't say, I can tell you this, a year ago or so, I told the council, somebody, a council member, because somebody mentioned it on social media, that the park needed some attention. It needed
Well,
some
I think
attention.
the only person that is on the council now, that was on with you, was Mr. Herndon and Ms. Hay. Is that correct?
Well, a year ago, yeah, that's
when you
that's
did
right,
that.
yes, when I was on, that's right. But again, they weren't nobody was in any departments, I don't think at the time, so, you know, I mean, we know where the responsibility goes back to, but still yet, you know, I'm just saying, this is not something, I think it's a great thing, if y'all got the money to do this, there's no doubt, you know, but I just want to explain to you the reason we didn't do it, we didn't have the money. And the park at the playground had already been taken out, was gone for 6 months.
Well, we had two grant opportunities though.
The
that we
grant
gave away. We had a $100,000 grant from the Jordan Bond grant that was going to be used in the playground.
Well, it
But
got
it was
used on
gonna be used for
landscaping, it got
turf
used on
and everything.
landscaping.
And then Kiwanis, and you're very familiar with that, Mary.
I met with the
Kiwanis
Kiwanis, but
offered to
it never got
pay
applied
for all
for,
of
it
it.
never got applied for.
But the city was so in disarray with everything with the park,
I
that
totally-
didn't get done.
I-
So we
I,
basically-
you know, I can't tell you about that, I can just
Right.
tell you, we just made the decision that, hey, we're putting it back. It already had been, graded out and had the slope that it should have had if there was really an attempt for the playground to go back. These people said that there was no need to have drains, or anything, so I'm just telling you what, you know. but-
I've got all their emails and I'll present
I
them
have
next week.
to, I have to.
But
They
let me
actually
say
moved
two
the
quick things.
Playground to
Do
the
what?
other side, they actually made a motion to move it to the other side, they were gonna take the barbecue pit out,
Yeah.
they were gonna do the landscape.
Yeah, I've read all that. That has-
Yeah, it's all public record, it's all public record.
But if you'll notice, when I did open the park after COVID-19, what did I do? We plowed the park up. We plowed and sifted it up. That's one of the things they say that you can do occasionally. And Bobby is over there, he worked with the detail on that. We're talking concrete that we were trying to plow up. And that's what happens if you will read and study mulch. When mulch starts disintegrating, which it does, stop and think, they're telling us 5 to 6 inches of mulch every 6 months, and when you go read all of this, you'll see it. When it starts disintegrating, it turns to this, and you start packing cold weather, rain on top of it, and heat in the summer, and what you're basically developing is concrete. So you've got one of the highest slides in the United States, and you can Google that. It'll tell you exactly what the average slide is for municipalities and playground. And when you start going and looking at all of these school systems and all these county governments, go to LJ, go to all of these and look at it. You'll see what I'm talking about. But there again, my job is to, number one, protect the kids that are in that playground. And to me, it's more important to protect that child than it is to stripe a street or to put a sidewalk. Anything else?
The only question I have for you, Mike, is at one point, I was never a fan of the wood mulch anyway, just because things could be hidden in there, it wasn't real sanitary and things like that. I had looked at something, and I brought it to the council, I think it was like $38,000 to do the entire playground with it, but it was like the rubber mulch, but it was compressed.
I got a quote today on the rubber mulch out of New Orleans. It's $35,000 delivered here.
Is it the compressed though, where it's like in a sheet?
No, they bring it to us in bags. The tractor trailer comes in bags. We've got to prep the park and put it in.
But you still have the same problem.
But here's the issues you have. Everything, and I can give you the negatives on the grass. Everything that you look at has positives and negatives, but you got to weigh that. And then you got to look at the kids, and you got to look at the grass, and you got to look at the sidewalk, and you got to look at your budget. But if you'll notice, when we had COVID-19, and it's in the paper, our projected shortfall, if you'll look, go back to April, I think it was April, with May. So the month of May, we had a shortfall of over $100,000 of water revenue. Well, you take that revenue through the end of the year, our projected shortfall, and I think what we gave was over $700,000, our projected shortfall for the year. And if you'll notice, some of the other neighboring municipalities had to pull all their money out of reserve. We did not want to be in that situation. So I kept delaying the part. We brought in the tiller plows, tillered it up. We tried to open it, and we did open it. And then, like I said, when the professionals started coming in and started Googling on Google Maps and looking at it, and across the board, they all told me the same thing. I knew that the hunch that I had was correct. And at the last council meeting, when I tabled it, the reason I tabled it was because I was waiting on the mulch that you just talked about, and I wanted to get a price for the playground that I just showed you up at the ridge, with where you go in and pour a concrete slab. You don't have to have a drain, you pour a concrete slab and come in and put that. But that same thing is twice as expensive as the grass, and you'll notice if you go to all these playgrounds, you don't see big spreads of that. You see small things like around merry-go-rounds and swing sets, things like that. But they do not, they're not setting under slabs because of the height and the risk factor.
I do have a question about, did you close the playground at the pool? Did you close it?
No. So the playground at the pool's been under construction. We've been taking all the we took all the cross ties out, we took all the sand out. Because here's the problem. You know what loves to play in the sand other than kids? Cats. Same thing with mulch. So we took the sand out, we're redoing that. We actually took the mulch from here over there, because you know how much mulch it takes to do this? You know how much mulch that we took the good mulch from this playground over there, and then we're going to top it off with bark, which is a little bit bigger, and it doesn't compact as much. And maybe, depending on budgets, next year we'll take the playground at the city park and we'll redo that. But we've got issues at the city park. We've got a pool situation we got to deal with starting in January to decide if we're going to spend that $100,000 on the pool, or do we do grass in the playground over there?
Well, the reason I ask is because this company that put this playground in, I had them do a design over there too.
I've got that.
And they told me that that one was 100% out of compliance from, first of all, handicap. We talked about it in the meeting. Council didn't want to go with the new, at that time, with the new, didn't want to spend the money for another one. And then I don't know if it ever got, whatever, said the sand was not ADA, and now that I don't know, I went out, I don't know what happened, but if it hadn't been changed, it was not in compliance. If you put the new mulch or the other mulch over there, then maybe it is, because you don't have the height factor. But it's got to be sand. You definitely can't put the wheelchair
Well,
in.
there again, we all have computers, so you can pull up the Public Playground Safety Handbook. That's the first thing I pulled up about 4 months ago and read it. Being a physical education major, I've read this many, many times. But this was in 2015. I don't know that it was ever read prior to doing the other part. I'm not sure. But then also you can go online and pull up the ADA handbook as well. And when you start reading this, and you read this, there's no question the park should have been closed.
What's the maintenance on that?
Do what?
What's the maintenance on that?
The maintenance on this is taking a water hose or a pressure washer 2 or 3 times a year, and it's a 15-year warranty. It's the longest warranty on any textures you can get, and I don't have an abundance of it.
Does bacteria grow in it though, with that rubber on the bottom, and then does the bacteria or mold or anything get in it?
This?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So, because see, it has holes, you missed that.
Okay.
Has holes in it, and then the rubber has holes in it. So this is glued on top of the rubber. The water goes into the grass, comes out these holes, goes into the rubber, goes through the rubber into the rock, and goes all the way down to the drains and washes out.
Yeah, but I believe I'd ask that though, because it's gonna stay damp, even though the water goes out of it. And anything damp is gonna get possible,
Right.
you know, something, so.
Well, with COVID-19, that's a concern. But, you know, you've got to, at some time, you've got to figure out what's the texture you're gonna put there.
Yeah.
But I was gonna show you, the reason we chose that texture versus this texture, you can see the shiny of this and all.
Mhm.
Problems with this sometimes, because of the way it's designed, it has a tendency to become loose. And on the playground, you don't want a child taking mulch and putting it in their nose, or pea gravel and putting it in their nose, or grass. So that has the warranty and the guarantee that doesn't do that. Anything else? I figured I'd get a couple hundred questions tonight. I've probably got 100 hours of research on this, and I know Miss Hart, when she was, spent a lot of hours as well. But it's a lot of work. But the bottom line, I challenge you. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your people on Facebook, go look at all the parks, go look at the playground, tell them, take their measure and measure. And I also challenge you to walk down to this playground and go stand up beside the slide. It's intimidating.
Well, I'll tell you, that was me. I mean, I wanted a good design for everybody, for the little older kids, and all that this company told me, said, hey, you can do it, but now the fall factory, you gotta have more mulch. So therefore, there was a little bit more expense, and I said, I think it's worth it, but they didn't say that, never told that, you know, cities and counties don't do it. I mean, they sold it, obviously, but I just felt like it would be a good thing for some of the older
But
kids.
you know, one thing I learned, you know, like I said, I've been coaching for 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I learned, you can't listen to the salespeople. You've got to go do your own research. And all of the different organizations that I just gave you will plainly tell you exactly, you know, what you need to have. And that's what I want to make sure that we have in the city of Blue Ridge.
But will the slide be in compliance if you use this grass then? Will that tall
Oh,
slide,
yeah,
or are you
yeah.
gonna have to take it out?
Well, you missed that. What they do here, let me borrow this just for a second. This is for the whole playground.
Mm-hmm.
And then something a little bit higher, depending on, they come in and do it, they put 2 of these. And it's what's thicker.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the slide, it's 3 times as thick as this because of the height.
So all around that tall slide?
All the way around.
Yeah.
All the way around. And quite frankly, once you have this corrected and it done, you don't have to have the big old mats down there because it's already got it. And it meets all of the standards for every organization. You can go through and look at it.
So for 15 years though, that's not gonna do our
15-year
carpet
warranty.
and go
That's correct.
press down?
But I said, I challenge you, go to these other places and walk on it and look at it. I've done that. And that's what you gotta do.
It has a 15-year warranty, but what kind of lifespan does it have? Does it have 25 or?
Well, no, I mean, there again, you can't listen to the salespeople. If you'll go do the research and look at the different types, because all these different layers, and every salesperson you talk to, they're the best, I promise you. They've got the best stuff and they got this. What it tells you is you need to expect to replace that in 15 years. But also, the playground equipment, I don't even know I haven't studied the life, because the equipment has never been my issue. It's the safety coming off of that equipment. So I haven't even looked, I'm sure it's got 20, 30 years.
I can't really remember, but I mean,
Right.
no doubt that
Yeah.
is better than mulch.
But we have an inspection company called TSI out of Dalton, Georgia. That's all they do. They inspect playgrounds and parks throughout the United States. They're one of the 3rd largest in the whole United States. They come to Blue Ridge, they inspect everything from the nuts to the bolts, everything. They also inspect to make sure, and when you start Googling and reading this stuff, you'll see all of these public parks are having problems with razor blades. They're having problems with needles. And it's all public knowledge. When you Google it, you're going to read all that. It's going to scare you to death. But that's what I was reading for the last 6 or 8 weeks. And when I didn't get the response from the council that I wanted, I decided to close the park. Anything else?
No?
I appreciate y'all coming. I hate we don't have a quorum and we can't vote on it. I've got people sitting in line right now. I mean, the group that I'm hoping that the council decides to go with, which would be this company, they're the ones that did the Ridge as well. They've given me about a 4-week span, and they've got a job in New York City. They go all over the United States. They just actually finished a job at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
So now what's the cost gonna be on it?
The cost of this,
To do that, I mean, to get it all done?
$60,000.
And that's them installing and everything?
That's everything. Now, there are 4 levels of installation. The first level, you gotta clean it out. We've already done that. The second level, you gotta bring in the first load of dirt, the first load of gravel. We're gonna do that, and I've got a price of somewhere between $2,200 and $2,500. And then after that, they come in and take over and do everything.
The drain and everything?
Everything.
Everything 60,000.
How long will it take to get it completed?
That's the thing. It's anywhere from a 2 to 4 week job from the day they come in here, depending on weather.
That's why we were hoping we could have a quorum. so we
And
could
he said,
have it-
we can't work when the ground is frozen. Because they've got to come in with these packers to pack the ground and pack all the gravel. And it's gotta be smooth. It's gotta almost be like concrete, but they don't recommend concrete underneath these, because guess what that does? Just gives it more hardening. So you've got 2 different layers of gravel, you got sand, you got drains, you got carpet, you got grass, you got 15-year warranty.
Why is the gravel and the sand there? What's the reason for that? Is that
For
the
drainage.
Drainage?
Drainage.
Okay.
And see, talking about mulch, stop and think, and let me give you one of these. This is actually not the right, honor yours for a second. Oh, one of these.
No, yeah, thank you. Oh,
If you see that, it dries very quickly. And
yeah.
I think it dries something like 1/10 of the time versus mulch. I think the average mulch is, you have to go and read all this, but I think it's 2.2 days after 2 inches of rain before your mulch is dry. This is dry usually within 24 hours.
And the mud puddles would be gone. They
There are no
just-
mud puddles.
That's over with.
There are no mud puddles.
So a good part of the year, the kids can't swing because we have the mud puddles in areas.
Yeah, real quick, what's the negative?
Cost.
Heat.
Oh.
Heat. Got to think about this. It's heat. If we have a bunch, you don't see this, and here's what you're going to see. It's all regional. You don't see that type of grass in California at a playground because it's 100 degrees. Here, they recommend it because we don't have a lot of 100-degree days, but it can get hot. So if it's 90 degrees, this is going to be 90 degrees on their feet. But guess what? You can always go out there every morning, Bobby, and wet it down. And it's not going to affect it. It's not going to create a mud puddle.
So you're gonna water the turf.
You're going to fix the slip and slides for them is what you're going to do. You're going to go out and wet it down.
I'll do that.
I know.
Those children need that.
That's it.
Well, they love to play down there.
Sure.
They really enjoy that playground. Well, Mike, thank you.
I
It's
hate,
very helpful.
but I will give you all the numbers and go through all the comparisons, and I've got all the different companies and all the different quotes and let you look at it. But like I said, I challenge you and all your friends and your neighbors to go do the research and do the reading, and you will, I feel very comfortable finding exactly what I found. Thank you.
Thanks. A couple of things, some of this can wait till the next meeting, but there's 2 other things that I want to give you a heads up on so that you're kind of familiar with it. We talked about bringing in a bathroom trailer, and the gentleman that could do that for us to be able to rent for downtown for the next several weeks through the busy season, has one.
If I skipped you, that's all right.
Individual stalls, so they have the sink and the toilets, and there's dividers between them, so that they're not sharing a restroom with anyone else. So with COVID, I think that's a nice addition. So we're not gonna need to decide because he's only got a short window to get it here, us get it installed, and we're gonna be lucky to have it installed. If we meet next Thursday, we meet next Thursday, I'm looking at my calendar. It gets approved, it probably won't be delivered till the week of the 16th through the 20th, and then it's got to have water hooked up to it and powered, right, Jeff?
Yes.
And you've got the drawing on that where it shows individual stop bathrooms. There's 4 bathrooms in this one trailer. So that's gonna make it nice for the people coming and going.
I don't have the drawing.
Okay. It's probably in our packet, so y'all look at that before next meeting. And, we'll definitely need to decide, and we'll need to try to get it here. Like I said, I hope he doesn't have a bunch of others he's sending out for the Thanksgiving week, so it'll be very close on getting it in time. The other thing that we have is the 8th Street pipe replacement. We were hoping to be able to do that project where,
Picnic tables, you missed that.
do what?
Because you're gonna talk about the picnic tables.
Well, oh, yeah, I forgot about that too. Oh, picnic tables. We discussed having some picnic tables added to the park, so during the Thanksgiving and Christmas festivals that we're gonna have, or not festivals, let me rephrase that, the extra traffic that we're gonna have during that time, we'd be able to have areas where people could actually get takeout, go out to the park and sit in the park. In order to get those tables back, those are probably 12 weeks out. So I wanted to ask about either purchasing some of the folding tables from like Home Depot and having those in the park temporarily. Do we have any of those anywhere, Bobby, that you're aware of, folding tables?
We could have 2 or 3.
2 or 3?
Uh-huh.
I think we probably need about 8 or 10, don't you think? Just
Yeah,
a
just
space.
spread them out and give people space between them.
You know. Do we have any chairs at all? The fold-up chairs, do we have any of those?
They're at the farmer's market, we do.
All of them, Jim.
Did we haul one from
Those that
here
are so, oh yeah, they were.
out there?
So, I don't know if we want to try to buy.
Tables with the benches attached, you know, the tractor supply has them, and then the picnic tables, and they got the benches
metal?
attached, yeah.
Maybe that would be an option.
They were only like, we got one this summer, they were only like $10 to $20.
Can you Clorox them and wash them off?
No, they're not, metal.
So Bobby, do you care to check on those at
Tractor supply?
Tractor Supply? She said,
They have the-
Well, that might be a good
I don't know
option
if
to
they still
get.
have them, but they did have one down there.
yeah. And if they don't have them at this store, they might call some of their other stores.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
think if we've got a solution, at least for the, next 3 or 4 weeks while people are here shopping, enjoying downtown, we
They
might
were
ought to,
attached, the seats are attached to the table, and that way you get, you know.
you don't have to worry about them.
I want to say real quickly, a lot of you, I'm sure, know Johnny Searcy, the chief of police, and his help. So myself and several other people put together an invitational golf tournament for this coming Tuesday. And we, right now, we're probably over the 10,000 mark that we've raised so far, and we'll know in the next week. But if anybody would like to make a contribution or a donation, or if you have a friend or a family member would like to, 100% of the proceeds will be going to Johnny Searcy and his family.
So,
And I've got this, and it's got the address and everything like that, if anybody wants to do that.
and the day that it could be held happened to be the day of our council meeting, so our council meeting is not going to happen next Tuesday night for that reason. And the other reason, when we had the power outage last Thursday, we had to have so many days to re-advertise for our property tax, the public notice on it again, so it actually wasn't, the timing had to be November the 12th, I think, so we were going to miss it by a couple of days anyway, so rather than having a November 10th and a November 12th meeting, we just decided to have a November 12th, so Tuesday, November the 10th is canceled.
The Thursday night. But the golf tournament's on Tuesday.
So if they
Let's
want to
pray
play,
for sunshine.
if they want to play in the tournament, do you have room?
Tournament's full. I've already, it's
It's
full. We've got 4 teams on the waiting list right now. Always looking for help, always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for more funds. It's been pretty amazing. I've got checks in from Chicago. Got checks in from all over the southeast.
Good. So the picnic tables, we're gonna have Bobby check on that. The 8th Street pipe replacement, that's a project that Jeff has been working on. We were kind of hoping to be able to work on that road and sidewalk and everything before the end of the year. But we need the ductile iron pipe for that. And ductile iron pipe is as much as 4 weeks out right now. So in order to be able to get that ordered, we really need to make a decision Thursday night. It'd be nice to have it tonight, but Thursday night, to be able to get that ordered, try to get it in here. It's probably gonna hit right at the Christmas season. Anyway, all the supply chains are really
And
struggling.
you're going to continue to see work on the park for prepping it for one of the surfaces, whichever the council decides. Okay.
Yeah, and that pipe on Ada Street, basically what that is, replace a 2-inch water main that's down Ada Street that comes off of Mountain Street. So it would have to be tapped into Mountain Street and then taken down Ada Street, at least past Davis Street, as far as the improvements we want to do there. So that's what that pipe replacement is for.
Canadian, right?
Yes, 8-inch would be replacing the 8-inch.
And the other are patching and striping. We had a couple of roads that were cut, that we've had several calls on one of the roads because it's in an area where there's a lot of residents that live. And so hopefully we'll be on there and the council will be ready to vote on that and get that approved. But other than that, the major things were the bathroom and the ductile iron pipe that kind of have us overdone.
Trying to get the playground.
And the playground.
Playground by Christmas.
What, yeah,
I mean,
if we don't get it approved before and they do the other job, did they give
they're
it?
not working the week of Thanksgiving, and we're probably looking right now. The city will be able to probably get the gravel and everything in prior to Thanksgiving. They probably won't be able to come in the week after Thanksgiving. It takes them 2 weeks.
So if we miss this opportunity to have them lined up to come in,
We'll have to go to another vendor, or we'll have to wait till spring.
The other thing is the heat and air here.
yeah, heating and air. We tabled that the last meeting and, I was on the other side of the office the other day and it was really cold and I'm not sure why the girls were wanting to be that cold. We found out we had not repaired our heat and it's a 20-ton unit. Not every heat and air conditioning company in town do 20-ton units. They'll have to order it. It may take us weeks to get it. If we wait and approve it in December, they're gonna be wearing winter jackets up there. So we've got to get it, we need it approved pretty quickly. We were told that to repair that, it was gonna be very expensive. The unit was put in 1992, is that right, Jim?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's lived its life. Other things y'all gonna have to make decisions on, so be ready to vote. Anything else? Anybody else have any questions? Thanks.
And if anybody has a question, my email is on the website. Just email me, whatever. My phone number is on there.
I would just like to say thank you to our mayor, the 2 council members who showed up, and the staff. We do appreciate you showing up for this meeting.
Well, thank you. Thank y'all for showing up. We didn't get anything accomplished, but at least we got some information out there.
You can take the mulch on, but I prefer you not to take the grass and the patio on. So if anybody wants the mulch, we got plastic bags, you can take that.